In terms of culture, I distinguish myself as a person with diversity and also with originality. My originality comes from the fact that I stayed in Korea for most of my life. I was born in Columbus, Ohio, in the States, but because I came back at the age of 2, I was too young to be influenced. From then, I went through all my life as a Korean, forgetting about the world outside. So I couldn't think of myself getting influenced by foreign culture because I was so soaked into Korean culture. Then, all of a sudden, I went to a country called Belgium where all the different cultures of Europe was mixed together. There, I was able to experience diversity and take into myself as a culture part of me. So the cultural shift for me was like a Korean typical teenager, like reading comic book nerds, to a more deeper sense of knowledge and experiences. So to sum up, the changing of the entire identity of mine went in a snap like this. Even though it might be a minor thing, but physical appearance is actually a major part of being belonging to a Korean culture because that's the first thing people see when they look at you. So having black hair, slanty eyes, thick eyebrows, nerdy looking glasses, that makes you think that he's Korean. So if people recognize you as Korean, that means that you definitely belong to a Korean society and the culture itself. So I define myself a Korean in terms of physical appearance. Another thing that makes me belong into the Korean culture is that I have a strong sense of liking many things that other Koreans like. A major example of this is food, and I love eating traditional Korean foods just like many other Koreans do. Kimchi, ramen, doenjang spicy and hot foods are all welcome. Also, in terms of everyday life, because of how Korean society works, everything in a chop chop manner, I managed to fit in. And I think that is enough to prove myself that I'm already a member of the culture since I don't have any problem fitting in with the unusual way of like functioning the society. So it may be disputable, but I conclude that the unity in preferences is a factor that always exists in any cultures around the world, and that I am one of the cases in terms of Korean culture. Last but not least, I think the sense of race, the Korean race, not the race of white people or black people, Asians, etc., ultimately functions as the distinctions that makes a person Korean. Korean race has been different from the other Asians from countries like Japan and China, obviously having different personalities. Out of all the supposedly requirements that factors I think applies to me are of the pride and the resilience. I'm more than just proud to be Korean, and anything that crosses my country without a reason makes me mad. This shows that a person can be considering their group's identity as a significance prior to their own. And lastly, Koreans are very resilient. By this, I mean Koreans tend to be very tough when it comes to achieving goals. They come back up even though they tumble in pain. Well, as a matter of fact, I lack in this trait a little bit, but I can tell for sure that Koreans have achieved so many things through their efforts and resilience, and I'm proud of such traits. Just like how I emphasize my originality of Korean culture, the Western culture actually had a great impact on my life as well. The biggest influence I had was the change in the perspective of the world. Until I went to Belgium, I was unaware or uninterested in the matters outside Korea, for it was only the Korean things that mattered to me. However, now that I have the experiences inside my head, I grew to view the world in a more wider perspective, providing myself with more opportunity of facing new things. So if I hadn't earned the perspective of viewing the world with a variety of perspective, I have to say that I would have stayed biased and naive for the most part of my life, which is a huge difference. In the life of Korean students, having a hobby is very rare due to the tough schedule they're put at. I was exactly the same people who didn't even care about having a hobby. I didn't think it was necessary, so I grew to not recognize it anymore. However, From the foreign culture, I learned a lesson that every person has to take a break from their work to balance their life with effort and pleasure. So I decided to have some interest in looking for a hobby, and I eventually did. Now, beyond hobby, I'm pretty obsessed with dancing, specifically breakdancing in detail, as a way to get away from all the stress in my everyday life. I find this lesson more valuable than anything else because it has impacted my life more directly and critically than any other factors. What I like about Korean culture the most is the fact that the culture formulates a strong bond between people. Even when I was in Belgium away from Korea, I could still feel through the media that Korean people were united and coexisted. Especially during the times like the Olympics and the World Cup, people coming together, feeling the unity between each other is just great. I feel good that I'm a part of the community and that I belong to the family of Korea. What I want Korean culture to improve upon is the fact that many Korean cultures and people are conservative and close minded. Korean culture is very well preserved since the good things are carefully handled by the people. However, because of such caution, new cultures and influences has a hard time facing the Korean people. This is an issue because it will be reversing the flow of globalization of the world. So I think it will be better if we keep the caution of preservation up, but still have an open mind, trying to learn something useful from the foreign cultures so that Korea becomes a more civilized nation in general. In conclusion, I want to declare myself as a person who appreciates culture, whether they're of my own or foreign. I have interest in any of them because I learned that cultures exist for a reason and that I, as an individual, have a potential of learning a lesson from it. I will constantly look for more cultures that might enrich my life and will settle in with more diverse experience. Thank you, and this was Paul.